House Republicans say they will release details today of their plan to avoid a government shutdown. It is expected to fund the government at current levels through mid-November, but faces a political minefield ahead. Joining us to discuss, Brett Samuels, White House reporter here at The Hill. So, Brett, House conservatives say they don't like CRs. They say these are Biden-era spending levels. We've already had several say they're not going to support it, but we have seen this movie before.
Yeah, Drew, we've seen the movie, we've seen the sequel, we've seen the third edition of the movie. This does seem to be, if not an annual occurrence, multiple times a year where we see these funding fights where ultimately you come up to this deadline. The simplest solution that everyone can seem to agree on is to kind of kick the can down the road with one of these continuing resolutions. House conservatives in particular kind of put up a fight about this, say they won't support it. Only for enough to support it to get it across the finish line. So, if history is a guide, this is going to get across the finish line without the government shutting down. But of course, there are variables. In the House, Republicans have a very narrow majority. In the Senate, they need a handful of Democrats to get on board. So it's not a sure thing, but, it is something that we have seen play out before.
We're expecting to get text of the bill at some point today. It's supposedly going to be a mostly clean CR, but they are discussing some additional spending on security for members of Congress in the wake of the killing of Charlie Kirk. What details are being discussed?
Yeah, so this is something, obviously, as you mentioned, in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death, where he was shot in Utah. This is something that was added. It does seem to be something that has some bipartisan support here because there's obviously bipartisan concern about lawmaker safety, about holding events, about making sure that things are secure after what happened to Charlie Kirk. So, there was an ask for, tens of millions of dollars in funding to bolster security for lawmakers, to make sure that they had proper security, to bolster security at the executive branch. So this does seem to be one of those things that lawmakers don't have much of an issue with and is not really going to sink these spending talks.
How involved is the White House in all of this? We saw the Truth Social from President Trump kind of turning the screws on Republicans, telling them to vote along with this CR and force Democrats to kind of possibly vote no on it and put the ball in their court. But is there really a lot of pressure being applied by the White House on House Republicans?
Yeah, right now the only public pressure we've seen is that Truth Social post and maybe some comments that Trump made to Fox News last week, where essentially him just urging Republicans to vote for this clean bill to continue to fund the government. Behind the scenes, White House officials have been in touch with lawmaker offices. And there's always a possibility that as this gets closer, President Trump may hop on the phone as he's flying home from the United Kingdom on Thursday, perhaps, to kind of rally support for any last-minute holdouts. But as of now, it does seem like the approach from the White House is mostly hands-off, other than that sort of public plea from Trump for Republicans to all unite behind this continuing resolution.
Okay, so the House says it's going to vote on Friday. Let's assume it passes and then heads over to the Senate, where Republicans need Democratic votes. There was outrage among the base of the party back in March when Democrats voted with Republicans to fund the government without extracting any concessions. How much pressure are Democrats feeling not to have that happen again?
Yeah, that was certainly, I think, a misstep, or many in the party viewed it as a misstep, although there was some debate over, whether Democrats really would have gotten anything out of shutting down the government last time around. This time we see Democrats seem to have a more cohesive and sort of planned out approach to what they're asking for here, what they want to see in order to get their vote, essentially, to keep the government open. We've seen, lawmakers wanting concessions on healthcare costs, wanting assurances about the government spending money that's been allocated on certain programs, freeing up funding. So there are specific asks here that Democrats have laid out. It doesn't seem initially like Republicans are going to give in to those demands, so that will, of course, just put more pressure on them to act. But, this time around, it does seem Democrats have a more sort of coherent strategy, coherent approach, as opposed to last time when there were just calls to shut down the government, but no real clear kind of ask for what they would get in return.
Yeah, one of the issues is the subsidies for Affordable Care Act, people who buy health insurance on the individual marketplace. Republicans, though, they do say they are concerned about that and want to negotiate that, but just not inside of this CR. Is that going to be enough for Democrats, or are they going to go to bat for including that in the CR?
Yeah, that's kind of what Republican leadership has said, that this is an issue for December, not an issue for these spending talks. This is something I think Democrats are happy to kind of take that rhetoric and use it to their advantage and say Republicans are willing to kind of punt the issue of rising healthcare costs for millions of Americans potentially. The question, as you said, Drew, though, is whether they're willing to take that and give over their vote, enough of them to keep the government open. If all Republican senators vote in favor of this, it would take 7 Democrats to get to 60 to pass the legislation. So, I think Democrats are probably going to want some more specific assurances beyond we're willing to talk about this down the road. But that is going to be the big question: is what is going to be enough for Democrats to give their votes for this?
Yeah, are you getting any indication from the White House or Senate Republicans that they're willing to kind of throw any kind of a bone to Democrats to allow them to save face and go back to their voters and show that they got something in this?
Yeah, the indication from the White House that I've heard so far is that there is no budging on this. They really want to just see Republicans unite on this, force Democrats to vote to keep the government open, or the White House feels like this will fall on Democrats, that voters will blame Democrats for shutting down the government. Of course, that's always the debate with these talks is one side says the other would be to blame, the other says the opposite. So, that's kind of the White House's bet here, is that they are going to essentially call the Democrats bluff, and let them take the fall potentially if they don't keep the government open. Of course, Democrats think that would not be the case, that Republicans, who are in the majority, would be the ones at fault here. So, the blame game is already kind of starting to simmer before this is even resolved.
Yeah, it looks like the train is heading down the tracks towards a crash, and hard to see where the off-ramp will be, but, that's often what happens here in Washington. We'll see what happens when we get to the deadline. For now, we'll leave it at that, though. Brett Samuels, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Drew.